Hello, this is Nathan, better known as CrazyhermitDM, and this is my podcast, The Hermit's Homebrew. Joining me today is Brent from Lang Mini Studios as we talk about Call of Cthulhu and other tabletop RPGs in preparation for Halloween season. I had a lot of fun because the one shot I did with Sam and all them, that was modern times. That was 2020, 2024. I actually just said it's set in today's.
Yeah, set in today's time, yeah.
So we had, they were part of all, a spiritual detective agency type thing, and they were all sent to investigate this missing woman, and then, my sister played the typical NCIS computer nerd person that did all the research.
Okay.
And she went and did a computer check. I go, you're just hitting rock bottom, and she's, reading, because I set out, a basic thing of rules for them. Mm-hmm. And then the one thing I go, and there's this thing called pushing the roll. You basically get a re-roll, but it's going to be a difficult more. Mm-hmm. She did it again, and rolled a 1.
Oh my God.
I'm like, and yeah, I go, you're just searching the internet and all this, and you're very tech savvy, and you just, after 3 hours, you're just like, oh, and your eyes are going blurry, and then it clicks.
You got that moment.
You go and search the dark web.
Woo.
And then you find everything. Oh. All the lore about this thing.
Nice. And that's also one of the cool things is that you could also use the in the modern setting, the great old ones and their cults and stuff use technology. They can be creating computer viruses. They can be creating.
Oh yeah, I mean, Evil proved.
Oh,
the TV series Evil proved that and gave me plenty of ideas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, all of a sudden, your phone is now a conduit for a great old one. Mm-hmm. And by using your phone, all of the horror stories are real of, oh, you're going to get cancer. You're going to get this. No, you're not going to get cancer. You're now a cultist.
Yes.
And you don't even know it.
You're the age of manipulation propaganda. I think that perfectly leads into, though, as a starter for our episode, it's my favorite time of year, and it's Halloween. Spooky season, yes. So this episode's a special episode. We're going to talk about horrors and gaming and ttrpgs, and we're going to talk not so much about Dungeons and Dragons, though we might reference it here and there, about how to use horror and Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about other games. If I had to choose a completely different system besides Dungeons and Dragons, or get away from the fantasy genre, Call of Cthulhu.
Hell yeah.
Or followed up by that, I wouldn't mind trying Vampires the Masquerade.
Anything in the World of Darkness, actually, you actually get, you can go horror because they've got vampire, they have werewolf, they have changeling, which is fae. They've got a bunch of different settings that, different creatures that you could play as or play against. Yes. So yeah, you could go horror real dang easy.
And I think I mentioned it to you guys once or twice, and it'll be a small side tangent before we get onto our main subject of, I've always told you guys, because I'm a huge Supernatural fan, that if whatever the group got tired of fantasy and all that and they wanted to go Call of Cthulhu, I'd be more than happy to run Monster of the Week Supernatural TV show style campaign for everybody.
That'd be so awesome.
And just every week, I try and keep it to a one shot, maybe 1 or 2 sessions per adventures. Yep. Mm-hmm. But it is an overarching story, but it's contained adventures, and it's just Monster of the Week type stuff. Oh, that way, in case it fizzles out, and it fits with Supernatural as well. Call of Cthulhu is more than likely, if you keep investigating this is not going to end well for you.
Yeah, there is one of 2 ways a campaign or a long-running character of Call of Cthulhu ends: insane or dead.
Mm-hmm. This is not going to be a happy ending.
Yeah, this will not be a happy ending.
But tabletop role-playing games are often, when you really think about them, are associated with the alpha. The start of it was Dungeons and Dragons. That was really still the beginning of role-playing, because it started out with obviously wargaming, and then they started wanting, it's well, what are these heroes doing, or these individual people on the battlefield?
They'll start with chainmail to where you have your armies, but then they said each army had its own champions or heroes or whatever. No. What if we've looked at them?
And then Gygax came up with, what happens if you did this in a fantasy setting and these wizards and that, and then it turned into Gandalf and Lord of the Rings and all that, and then that's how Dungeons and Dragons first started. But not many people know that, like, Dungeons and Dragons it's facing its 50th anniversary.
Yep.
So they consider 1974, like, it was really started more, really kind of floundering around 1970, but it really became published and going at 74.
Okay.
Not many people, like, other than, like, the people that are really deep dived in the hobby, like you or me,
Yep.
realize that. So 7 years later, in 1981, the first edition of Call of Cthulhu was written.
Oh, it was 81. Okay.
I know you had bets before we started recording that it was 86, but it's actually 81.
It was 81. Okay.
And that was kind of the, like, obviously there's probably flirtations with horror before that. I don't know the full history, unfortunately. But that is when the first main tabletop RPG, Call of Cthulhu, was, born.
Dang.
And it came from one of the godfathers of horror themselves. I mean, there's Bram Stoker's, there's Mary Shelley, who's there's mother of
Stephen King.
Who's like, there's Stephen King. But even Stephen King, he cites his main source of inspiration as being H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, yeah.
And it just kind of grew from there. It's now in its 7th edition, as opposed to like D&D's 5th. This is their 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu. And there's several other games to like look at. If you're looking for horror, there's many different like horror RPGs. There's Call of Cthulhu. There's one called 10 Candles. That's a one-shot style RPG that answers the question, what would people actually do when the world ended? It's almost a horror version of an actual Fallout.
Oh, okay.
Post-apocalypse. Or there's the more older one. I don't know what edition that one is in, unfortunately, but there's Vampire the Masquerade, as I mentioned. The latest edition, as far as I know, it takes place in Los Angeles, but I know it's taken place all over the world. I'm a big Anne Rice fan, so I'd go to New Orleans or Louisiana just in general.
I really like it when people use settings that aren't New York or LA. I get why they do it because that's more internationally known.
Yeah.
But you can use like, New Orleans. That's a really good, like, people know New Orleans. Miami. People know Miami, Florida, or go international. Pick London, Paris, Stockholm, Moscow.
There's a brand new Call of Cthulhu supplement that just came out that takes place in Berlin.
There you go. Yeah, Berlin.
I'd really like to take a look at because it's like 1920s or 30s. That's pre-Nazi Germany, and that's right when the Nazi party was kind of like starting, but it wasn't. It was more just a political group.
Yeah, and then more of like an upstart because like Hitler tried to do all of his stuff with like the beer hall push and stuff like that, and he was in prison for years.
And we've played a couple of one-shots of Call of Cthulhu, and that's the fun part for me because I like learning and I like history. Is like I learned a lot of things from just me trying to give you guys more atmosphere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because that's like the deep atmosphere of like fantasy of like Dungeons and Dragons, and you really just want to sink into like feeling it. That's the great thing about horror RPGs. What brings a whole new perspective to the table with tension and atmosphere and especially storytelling. And it even works even better if you know all the people around your table. If you've known them for a fair time and you know what kind of trips their trigger, you know what buttons to kind of like poke.
Yeah, because like with D&D, it can be very tactical.
Yes.
And a lot of stuff can be very visual based.
Yes.
Horror really can double down onto what does something sound like, what does something smell like, and all of that kind of stuff.
Call of Cthulhu, it ain't tactical. It's more like theater of the mind.
Yeah, you're supposed to avoid combat.
Yes, and you are very
squishy.
Yeah, you don't usually have more than like 8 to 14 HP. 14's very high end. I know that. So like when you're looking at that type of stuff, the 2 one-shots I've run I've actually run a total of 4. I ran one, the more famous one for all you guys, the one that's called The Haunting. And then I also ran one that I got from a 2nd edition Call of Cthulhu magazine way back in the day, and I turned that into mine. And then I also more recently, so like I moved into this house as we mentioned, and money's a little tight here and there. So I asked my brother and sister, hey, I'm a little tight on money or whatever. I do want to get you presents. Can I? And they know I'm a gamer. They've gamed with me over the years, off and on. Let me give you a present of what I do best, and that's running a game, telling a story. Let me run Call of Cthulhu for you.
Nice.
It's like, you guys have played D&D, but you haven't played Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And we played a modern day, like 2024 scenario, and they just had fun. And we'll get into that a little bit later, because I do want to talk about our one shots, and I do want to talk about our stories, and I want to kind of give our viewers how to pull in your players to really get them to buy in more. And we'll talk about that, because those are like the key mechanics of like horror tabletop RPGs. You have the stress and the fear mechanics. Many horrors, like Call of Cthulhu, or there's one called like Liminal Horror that I was researching while doing this episode. I hadn't heard of it till this one, but I want to check out it more. They focus and implement like on the stress and sanity systems that represent a character's psychological endurance to like handle what they're seeing or going through.
Yeah, the mind-numbing weirdness.
Yes, the more stress a character endures, the closer they come to breaking, creating tension, and it's rooted in like that emotional and mental stakes, and not just the physical ones. Tove in our D&D game, or Brent's like wife, she got put through the ringer on our last like one shot. She's a little taken back because she like after that one shot ended, and because she lost like 30 or 40 sanity. In that span of a night. Yeah, you go spend some time in an asylum after this one shot. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's the only way you regain sanity in this. It's like, you gotta go. It's just like you're
analyzed or something. Yeah.
It's the 1920s. So it's 19. Like our second one shot took place October 27th or 28th of 1929.
1929, okay.
The day after Black Friday.
Yep.
Because it was the Saturday. Because your character was reading the newspaper and the stock market just crashed.
Tanking,
Just crashed. Yeah, the Great Depression just started.
Yeah, we're going to a freaking masquerade
and
party.
you guys are going to the Great Gads. Yeah, you guys are going.
Gatsby, yeah. So yeah, like, what are we doing here?
Well, it just started. I mean, I doubt even when like the housing market tanked in the 2010s.
Yeah, people didn't know how bad it was going to get.
Yeah, you still had those people, and I'm pretty sure you probably had those people that weathered the storm and still had parties.
And still was just fine. Yeah.
I mean, we managed throughout the pandemic and all that. That would be an interesting Cthulhu scenario, something that takes place during the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, people getting locked down and stuff like that.
But you get that. You already have that isolation factor.
Yeah, you have the isolation factor kicking in. You have that fear of being around people because they could be infected. You could get sick. Yeah, even going out in public would be a danger. Yeah.
That's not a bad one. That's a way you can increase those stress and fear mechanics, and you pull in the isolation. Like, you are alone. Because there's different types of horror that you guys can really pull. Like the first one shot I did with you guys for The Haunting, that was just classic haunted house horror.
Oh, that was classic haunted house. Yeah.
And then the second one was it might be, I guess, cosmic horror, but it was more mental draining. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's more of like it was a horror mystery.
Yeah.
Kind of like the movie The Void.
Yes.
To where, okay, everything is still kind of in the realm that we can control and we can handle it until like later on when stuff really starts going off the rails, and then it just turned into we have to survive this rather than there's not really a big bad guy to beat. There's not really anything to solve. It's just survive, which I'm proud to say most of us did.
Yeah, we did.
One got eaten.
Yes,
by the King in Yellow. But
we'll talk about that too, because I want to talk about that. Unfortunately, Chase is not able to be here tonight
to talk about his glorious death.
Yeah, to talk about his glorious death. But it also kind of reminded me a little bit. I don't know if you've seen the new movie Late Night with the Devil.
No.
That's a new one that's out on Amazon Prime, and it's like this guy's basically trying to be the new late night talk host that upseats Johnny Carson.
Ooh, okay.
And then he brings on a possessed guest to try and... Because he starts finding out, like, oh, hey, if I start bringing on this stuff that gets the ratings, Well, he brings on a lady that brings on a possessed guest that was like the lone survivor of basically a cult compound.
Oh, okay. That's something you got to worry about.
Yeah.
You're the lone survivor. Why did you survive?
You find out. And they
the one
play
that
those
killed
mental
everybody.
games of like what's real, what's not, especially at the end. It's very Lovecraftian. And I highly recommend it. If anyone that likes horror, watch Late Night with the Devil. Another one that you guys like, another key mechanic though, while we're continuing on, is unlike erotic fantasy games, horror RPGs, or at least tabletop RPGs, thrive on scarcity. Players have fewer resources, adding weight to each decision. Think of suspense when you are playing like survival horror video games. It's like
Resident Evil. You've only got 12 bullets.
what's the new one? Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight, yep.
What's the one where everybody's fighting against like the one solo like serial killer? Is that Dead by Daylight or?
I think that's Dead by Daylight. And there's
a couple really good horror
like
games right now.
In the past like 5 years, there have been a couple of indie games come out that focus on that. Evil Within is another 1 and 2 are really good, and I gotta give I haven't played number 2, but the first one kind of got to me. I was talking to you about it at NewCon, to where there was one time I was playing Evil Within, and it was in like this dark, like dilapidated like hospital, and I turned the corner and there's a long hallway, and there's one single light in the middle of the hallway, and it's like perfect. It is a perfect shaft of light from a perfect light bulb. It's perfectly clean. It's perfectly clear. Really, really stands out. It's drastically different than the environment around it. And immediately, my gamer brain kicked and I went, something's going to happen there. I'm already on edge. And so I start slowly walking up there, and you hear like this squeak, this metallic squeak, and slowly an empty wheelchair comes into the shaft of light and stops. And I remember going, nope, I am not going there. Nope, I'm going the other way. Something super simple. It wasn't like this big scary monster. It wasn't blood and gore. Something real simple.
Without giving away too much of the plot of the haunting for our viewers that haven't played it, because I want everyone to give that one a chance. That is a very easy.
It was really good.
About probably 2/3 of your session will be in, like most Call of Cthulhu plays. It's an investigation game.
Yeah.
You're trying to usually solve a mystery that usually ends up going wrong.
Yeah, you're using your skills to figure stuff out.
Stereotypically, at least. So in the haunting, it's a very stereotypical haunted house. I don't want to give away the ending or like a lot of stuff with the spoilers. The second one I'll give away because that was a lot more of me taking. It was probably about more 80% of what was written, and I added my own 20% to it.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of spots that really stood out in the haunting that I knew I drove home, and I knew that I was on the right track. One in particular was especially for Tove, by the end of the investigation, it's not an adventure in this one. It's they're called investigations. Was she refused to go down the basement?
Oh yeah, she actively refused. Yeah, she's like, no, I am not going down there.
And during the final confrontation with the thing that's down in the basement, like because it is such a powerful being, or it is a powerful being.
A powerful threat.
It is a powerful being, and they don't really say it in the actual written thing for any of you arcane keepers, but I gave him a little bit more illusionary powers. Like,
okay.
Vicky, who is playing a person, I think actually from New Orleans.
Yes.
She wrote, by the end of that first one, she wrote her own backstory. She fell in love.
Yeah, she fell in love with that character, yeah.
She fell in love with that character, still loves that character. And she's the only one that's, out of the two adventures, she's the full believer.
Mm-hmm.
And has really, like, survived unscathed each adventure.
Yeah, she's done really good, yeah.
Like, she's played smart, but like her and Tove are at the very top of the stairs because she runs up the stairs, and so it's left for the guys to take care of this.
It's me, Chase, and was there another one, or was there just us four?
Sam was with us as well.
Sam was.
Sam was sorry. So it wasn't just the guys.
It wasn't just the guys. Yep. Okay.
Sam stayed down there.
Yeah, she helped Chase and I. Yeah.
And like so, the door locks, and
that whole like ghostly lock.
It slams shut behind when Vicky goes, and it locks. Yeah.
Okay,
And then
I remember
she
now.
wrote in her backstory, and she dropped the line to it because she role played it a bit, and she talked about how her daughter had died, and that's part of the reason why she's investigating supernatural. She's trying to reconnect.
Yep.
So, like, when the door slams shut, she's trying to pry open the door, and Tove is just like sitting in that hall. Should I? And she actively says this out loud, and that made my day. It's like, I'm thinking about bolting.
Yeah, she was like, I'm thinking my character would get the hell out of here.
I'm thinking about just leaving right now.
Yeah, because there was an open door, because it was a shotgun house. There was an open door right down that hallway.
I think I said the basement door slams shut and the front door opens.
Yeah, the front door is open. Yeah, and
Like,
so,
it's like, it's swung.
it was at the same time, one open and one
Yeah,
closed.
yeah,
Okay.
and he's basically telling whoever, out,
yeah,
get out.
yeah, if you want to survive, leave now. Yeah,
But as like Vicky's trying to pry it open, her character, I cannot remember her name, unfortunately, the character's name.
Yeah,
But I say, you see these little childlike fingers go underneath these, like the
God,
door,
yeah.
and just like
scraping underneath the door,
like almost like, you know how a cat reaches underneath with the paw, but their fingers, and then you hear your daughter's voice, let me out, let me out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was good.
And the one part that got you, and I was surprised you did it, was earlier in the adventure, is you did the stereotypical horror movie thing.
Well, and that's the reason why I did it. It's literally what my character would do. I was playing a private investigator that didn't believe.
Yes.
This is all smoke and mirrors. It's all hokum. Someone's just trying to get insurance money or whatever.
You're interviewing the neighbor of this haunted house, of what was going on, and the investigation is you guys are trying to figure out whether this is haunted or what's actually
going on with this
going
house?
on, because
Yeah.
I cannot rent this out.
Yeah,
Or
why are people not staying here? What's going on?
The owner or the landlord has contracted you guys and paying you
Pretty well in 1920s money.
Yeah,
you know,
like a couple, I think $100 or $200,
yeah,
which is
I
like
would say it was a couple $100, which is
the
dang good
equivalent
money back
of like $1,000 each
then. Yeah.
to basically stay a night here and just despunk it. And so you go investigating, and I pulled the very stereotypical thing with the radio.
Yep.
It would turn on and off, and I found like an old song that was a hit from the 1920s of the song. I cannot remember the title of it, but it was basically, it's all up to you. That was the overall theme of the song. It's like, it's all up to you. And it's just this lady singing a very ragtime, like 20s theme to it. Or looking at, you turn off the radio, go to walk to another room, turns on again.
I remember like you describing it. And I remember just shaking my head, going, no. And
then you go back over, the radio, and the knob's still in the off position. And then you unplug it from the wall, it turns off.
Yep.
Because I actually had to look that up. Is there plugins in 1929? There was.
Yep.
And certain houses, I think 20% of America, and this is a well-to-do house, so
There would be some electricity. Yeah.
yes. And there was a breaker box, and it did describe that in the module itself.
Yep.
So, and then you actually went to the other room, started looking, and then you heard the radio turn on again.
He was like, Nate, don't do this to me. Yep. That was that. You did a good job. That really drove home. Like, okay, yep, this is actually haunted. Yep, there's some shenanigans. Yep.
I think that's the only time I've seen you legitly, like, slightly as a player unnerved at a
As
table.
a player, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you got to that main hall, because there's a main hall in the middle of all these rooms that leads up to the upstairs or the basement, but there's a main hall and then the front door. It's like a hall that goes through the middle of the house.
Yep.
And you get to that middle of the hall, and you're just looking at that radio, and it's on. You just kind of shake your head and like, nope. And that's when all the doors slammed and the entire house shut.
Yes.
Oh.
Great. How am I going to get out of this now?
And then that's when you're just like, yep. And then you go to the back door where you left. It opens. You leave. And then the scene ends. And you're like, you pulled out all the stereotypical haunted house tropes on me. And it worked. Hey, tabletop gamers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Hermit's Homebrew. We come out with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends as we continue to level up and grow.